Deep breaths. Okay. Hey you guys, it's Danny and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is all about toxic relationships. I don't know if I should be making a cute sound about that. Just to start off, I want to say that what I talk about in this video can apply to any type of relationship, whether it be a parent-child relationship, a romantic partner, a friend, whatever. We often come into a state of doubt and we start asking ourselves questions like, was the relationship really that bad? Am I remembering wrong? So we question whether the pain we experienced in that relationship is valid. We question whether it was just a normal relationship that turned sour or if we were actually a part of a really toxic dynamic. And before we get into the signs that a relationship is actually toxic, I want to let you know that regardless of the other person's intentions, your experience is 100% valid. It doesn't matter if their intentions are pure or not, because the pain that it caused you is just as much real. Intentions don't override the consequences of someone's actions. Now that we've covered that, it's time to get into the 10 signs that the relationship was or is actually toxic. Number 1, you always feel like you're in debt. Let's start off with a quick example. One day your partner comes home and gets you a really nice gift. It's beautiful and it's expensive and it's really nice. And maybe their birthday rolls around and you make them a really cute photo album of you guys together and the memories you've experienced and all this stuff. And instead of them feeling really grateful that this is the gift you bought them, or instead of them communicating without judgment what kind of gift they would want to receive in order to feel like you care about them, they get really mad at you for not getting as nice of a gift as they got you. And it almost feels like this comparison game of, well, I love you more, and because your gift isn't as nice as mine, that means you must clearly not love me as much. So even though it was very nice that they got you this awesome, amazing gift, the fact that they held it against you that you didn't get them a gift that held the same material value, in a way kind of proves that in getting you this gift, they didn't simply do it from, no, why? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my YouTube channel where my cat's curiosity is more important than what I have to say. But it's okay, she's literally the best. The fact that they held it against you that your gift didn't hold the same material value, in a way kind of proves that their intentions weren't pure. They got you this really nice gift with the expectation that you would have to meet that standard, even though they never communicated that that's what they wanted explicitly. So what this leads to is at a certain point in your relationship, when they do something really nice for you, instead of feeling this overwhelming amount of gratitude and love, you get this feeling in your stomach, or at least that's where I get my bad feelings, of fuck, now I have to pay off this debt. They just did something nice for me, so this means I have to do something twice as nice for them if I don't want to feel like I'm accountable for them giving me something nice. And things that are done out of a place of kindness should never feel like you're signing a contract, should never feel like you now owe this person something for doing something nice for you. And so this often puts us in a position where we're doing a lot of nice things, but we're not even truly doing it from a place of love, even if that's what we tell ourselves or believe we're doing. We're really doing it from a place of fear. You're always trying to balance the scale in a way, instead of just authentically giving from that place of love and expecting nothing in return. The second sign that a relationship is toxic is that you're isolated. You feel like you're not allowed to be friends with people unless this other person is also friends with them or this other person approves of them. So they will convince you that a lot of your friends or people that you spend time with are toxic and you need to cut them off, especially if they are demanding of your time and especially if they want to see you outside of your romantic partner or this friend or whatever. They will always ask you why you're talking to someone, and usually you feel inclined to minimize how much you enjoyed that interaction. You feel inclined to minimize the depth in which you're connecting with this person. And then there's often a reaction of well, why are you talking to them? And it feels like you interacting with other people is somehow doing something wrong. They will also belittle the worth of your friends or the people you enjoy spending time with. If you say, wow, I think that person's really cool, they'll kind of be like, why? Why do you think that? They're not that cool. And they will kind of
invalidate the reasons why you like this person in order to keep you away from them. Because deep down they fear that if you really like someone else or connect with someone, you're going to suddenly see all the things wrong with them and leave them for this other person. But instead of honestly communicating, hey, when you talk to these other people, it makes me feel like this, they hold it against you whenever you do something that triggers their emotions or triggers their abandonment issues. They create this dynamic where you feel like they're the only person you can trust, or you guys have some sort of divine, perfect connection, soulmate relationship. It feels like it's us against the world. This relationship is the only good thing out of a terrible, awful life, in a sense. So you feel isolated, but you're enmeshed together in this cocoon. So it's like you feel safe with this person without realizing that this person is the very thing that's repelling other relationships away. They almost perceive love as a limited resource and that it has to all be reserved for them in order for them to feel fulfilled. But even in this dynamic, neither of you will ever feel truly fulfilled. Even if you think the relationship is the one fulfilling thing in your life, in all other aspects of life or whenever you're alone, you don't feel whole. Number 3, they make fun of you. I don't mean they give you the occasional roast. I don't mean they poke fun at little things about you and you guys have a good laugh together. I mean that they say things that make you feel ashamed of yourself. And when you communicate to them that they really hurt your feelings, instead of empathizing and listening and trying to understand, they'll usually say things like, well, you can't take a joke. You're overreacting. Oh, come on, it wasn't that bad. Or if they do empathize with you and they do listen to you, their behavior doesn't change. They'll make excuses for why they can't. Oh, sorry, I just can't help it. I have ADHD. Sorry, humor is how I deal with my trauma. And even if that's true, their trauma response is not an excuse to put you down. When they make fun of you, they will capitalize on your insecurities. They'll really hit you where it hurts. They will bring up things in front of other people that you have asked to keep private. And they will bring up things about you that are often really inappropriate. For example, like you're at dinner with their family and they bring up something that happened between you guys in the bedroom and you're just like, what the fuck? Why is this happening? And oftentimes you'll just kind of laugh it off to ease the tension, but deep inside you're just like, holy shit, why did they say that? And even though this is done under the guise of humor and under the guise of, oh, it's just a joke and it's funny and whatever, it's not funny to you. And it feels like they're intentionally saying these things to kind of twist the knife in order to keep you in this cycle of insecurity, and then you come back to them for comfort and reassurance and validation. It's keeping you in this bubble of insecurity to ensure that you come to them to feel okay. So again, it's a cycle of making you feel like you're not good enough. Because this person you're in a relationship isn't secure with who they really are, they feel like the only way they can maintain a relationship with you is if you feel really insecure so that you come to them for reassurance and validation and love. Number 4, they're super hot and cold. You're hot and you're cold, yes and you know. So sometimes in this relationship, this person is super affectionate. They give you a lot of time, they give you a lot of energy, they give you a lot of attention and validation and praise and all of these things that feel so good. And other times they are just incredibly aloof. What this phenomena is known as is intermittent reinforcement. So intermittent reinforcement is one of the patterns that keeps people addicted. It's what keeps people into gambling. It's what keeps people stuck on social media. You can read up on intermittent reinforcement and really understand how it works and how it's so addictive. But basically, long story short, there was an experiment done with lab rats. So they had 3 different groups. One group was, there was a lever, and when the mouse pushed it, food came out every single time. The second group was a mouse would push the lever and food would never come out. And the third group, the mouse would push the lever, sometimes it would come out, sometimes it wouldn't. So the first group, where the food came out every time, they started just pushing the lever when they were hungry. So when they needed food, they'd push the lever and eat. The second group, where the food never came out, they kind of just gave up and lost interest. But what happened with the third group, where sometimes the food came out and sometimes it didn't, is they started obsessively pushing this lever. Because it was so inconsistent, there was almost like this anxiety or this that builds up in the rat and felt the need to continue giving out this token. So this is how it works. Are you fucking kidding me? So this hot and cold dynamic, this intermittent reinforcement is actually what makes toxic relationships so addictive. It's what keeps you hooked and it's what keeps you coming back for more. They don't have the ability to keep up the affection, attention kind of thing because they're too busy with their own shit and they don't want to deal with it, so they use you for love and validation instead. That did not deserve a thumbs up. So in these hot and cold dynamics, this friend or romantic partner or parent doesn't communicate to you when something is wrong. Instead, they'll usually just kind of shut you out and stonewall you. They'll give you the silent treatment without ever indicating why they're giving you the silent treatment in the first place. They won't set boundaries and say, hey, I need some space right now, I need to be on my own. Instead, they completely shut you out and put this wall between you, and you're kind of sitting there like, I don't know what to do. So in this relationship, you feel like you can't talk about your needs as it pertains to this other person. When they're super cold, if you try to come to them with your needs, they will make you feel bad for needing something from them when they're clearly going through a hard time. And then when they're hot and affectionate and loving again, you decide to swallow your needs because in this moment, your needs are being met, at least for the most part. And you're afraid that if you bring up your needs in this very affectionate, hot moment, that they're just going to pull away and go cold again. And so it just keeps you in this loop of up and down and up and down and up and down. And the relationship feels like a fucking giant roller coaster. It's like fucking Goliath or the Drop of Doom or Hollywood Tower of Terror. The fifth sign that a relationship is toxic is that they always have it worse than you. They will often try to one-up your pain. If you've gone through something that was really hard or challenging, they try to one-up you. And I don't mean they tell a story in sense to relate to you or to show you, hey, I've been through this too, I know what you're going through. They do it more so in a way where it's like, well, it's not as bad as when this happened to me. So first off, they make you feel like your experience and your pain isn't as valid as theirs is. And second off, they will usually only validate the pain that you experience that isn't caused by them. By making you feel like they always have it worse than you, when they do something that is really unhealthy or detrimental to you or others in their life, the fact that they have things so much harder gives them an excuse to act like a shitty person. And because they make you feel like you couldn't possibly understand the pain that they've been through because it's so much worse than your pain is, it makes you feel like, oh, these behaviors that really hurt me, I'm just going to have to overlook it because they've been through things that I haven't and I couldn't possibly understand this. But even if someone has been through more traumatic physical circumstances, they should understand that that doesn't make your pain any less real. But this person almost gets a feeling of worth from having it harder than everyone else to excuse their behavior and still feel like they're better than other people. And what this ends up leading to is you feel like your emotions are invalid. You feel like you're crazy. You feel like you can't be honest about your emotions because your emotions aren't rational. Your emotions aren't okay. Number 6. They don't really apologize. What I mean by this is they don't really have the ability to take accountability for their actions. Usually it takes a while for them to get to this place to apologize. You feel like you're chipping at this wall, this hard shell, and you're just like chip, chip, chip. Eventually, the wall breaks, but behind it, instead of someone who's taking actual accountability, instead of somebody who's genuinely looking at why their actions are wrong and seeing how they can take steps to change, they will say things like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm the worst. Why do you even love me? You're so much better than me. So basically, instead of them ever taking accountability for their actions, like, I'm so sorry that I hurt you. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. What can I do in order to ensure that you feel loved and safe in this relationship? They bring the focus back to them. Oh, I'm so sorry, pity me, I'm the victim. I'm just a fuck up that can't do anything right. They're expecting, by them throwing a pity party for themselves in a sense, that you're going to come to their rescue and be like, no, I do love you. No, you're not a fuck up. You're amazing. You're beautiful. It's okay. When you're communicating your needs and your feelings, that should be the focus of that conversation. That should be the top priority of that other person, is to listen to your needs, and then they can communicate their needs, and then both people feel like they're being seen and heard. You shouldn't feel like you have to beg for someone to listen to how their actions impact you. Number 7, all of their past friendships or relationships are toxic. Usually when you get close with this person and the topic of past relationships arises, they will talk about how all of these people shat all over them, abandoned them, and how all of these weird, awful things were done to them, and they are always the victim in these instances. They don't take a single ounce of accountability for why they attracted that relationship, why they brought this person into their life. They don't show any ounce of self-awareness for why that dynamic existed for them. So it always seems like this person was wronged for seemingly no good reason. And if I'm being quite honest, this is how this person is going to talk about you when you are out of the relationship. And no matter how perfect you try to be like the best person you could, they are going to frame you as the bad guy. They're going to frame you as the person who wronged them. I don't like that the heater starts. This is the problem with living somewhere that's cold. It just randomly in the middle of my videos goes Number 8, the relationship has no boundaries. So there are no clear boundaries that are set up in this relationship. There's not a conversation about, hey, I need to make sure that you respect this and na 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 na. Wah, 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 wah. Instead, the boundaries are super blurred and completely unspoken. And usually you will constantly let this person violate your boundaries because you don't even know what your own boundaries are. But obviously your body will tell you, ooh, that didn't feel okay. But because you probably grew up in a dynamic where your boundaries being violated was normal, you accept when other people completely walk all over them. So over time, you start walking on eggshells and you have to slowly gauge what you can and can't do. And depending on the reaction, you learn, oh, like when I say this, they're just gonna completely shut me out and stonewall me. So I'm going to make sure never to cross that line so that I avoid that emotional reaction out of them because it makes me feel really shitty about myself. Instead of them saying, hey, when you crossed this line, it really hurt my feelings and it wasn't okay. But because they probably grew up in a family dynamic where even if they did communicate like that, their boundaries were violated anyway, they feel the need to emotionally punish you or emotionally punish others in order to ensure that people don't cross certain lines, instead of them being honest about what lines you can and cannot cross. You feel like you're at the will of their emotions. You feel like depending on their emotional state, you can say or not say certain things. They almost like train you to not violate their boundaries, and in a lot of instances, they still will have no regard for yours. And even if you do communicate that they're crossing a line, they will make you feel like you're bad for having those needs, you're bad for having those boundaries, that that boundary isn't reasonable, that by setting up that boundary, that means you must not love them enough. Number 9, you need their approval to make decisions. Obviously, if you're like 12 years old and this is your parent, that makes sense. I'm not saying that if you're like 16 and you have helicopter parents that are coordinating every single plan you have with others, that that's a healthy dynamic, because I don't think it is. But I'm saying that this point is a little different when it's with a parent or with someone you live with, simply for making sure that plans work, simply for making sure that everyone's needs are being respected. But oftentimes it's done so more from a place of insecurity, from a place of not wanting you to get too close to another person. If you make any plans or make any decisions without getting their approval, they make you feel like you're not taking their feelings into account. But you shouldn't be sacrificing yourself to show how much you love someone. You should be the most yourself that you possibly can to find a partner that loves you for exactly who and what you are, instead of someone that feels like they need someone to almost be at their service in order to feel loved, because that's not a healthy dynamic. And then you aren't being loved for you, you're being loved for the role that you're playing. You're being loved for the character that you're portraying. They have this expectation that since you are theirs, you're their best friend, you're their child, you're their romantic partner, that they should be able to pick and choose whenever they want to hang out with you. And this will often lead you to neglect your relationships, neglect your work for the sake of spending time with them. And sometimes this is a little tricky to spot because you end up voluntarily asking them if it's okay, and then you invalidate yourself being like, well, I put myself in that position. And that's true. That's why you attracted this relationship in the first place. Very observant. Good job, beach. You are very good at voluntarily violating your own boundaries or sacrificing your own needs in order to be what this other person needs you to be, but that doesn't make the relationship any less unhealthy. And lastly, number 10, they constantly test you. They will just do these little things to see if you do what you're supposed to do, because if you pass the test, that means you love them. But if you fail the test, if you don't do the things you're supposed to do, then that clearly means you don't love them enough. So if you fail the test, what happens is they get really mad at you, claiming that you don't love them, you don't care about them, or they punish you by being super cold and stonewalling you and just kind of giving you the silent treatment. So you're kind of expected to just know what to do in this relationship without ever being properly communicated to as to what this other person needs. Another test that a person can put on you is like an ultimatum or like threatening you, like, well, I guess you can hang out with them Saturday, but like I really wanted to see you and hang out with you, so like if you want to hang out Saturday, like just let me know because I'd really appreciate it. They make it seem like they'll respect whatever decision you make, but they expect you to do what they want, and if you don't, they'll emotionally punish you. Also, my cat knocked this book off the table, and look what fucking happened. You dumb kitty. You're a stupid cat. So now that we've gone through the signs that the relationship actually is or was toxic, now what? What do we do once we come to the realization that we've been in a toxic or unhealthy relationship? First off, it's okay and necessary to be angry. Anger is often an emotion that comes up when our boundaries have been violated. Even if it's our fault those boundaries were violated, we didn't communicate, we didn't maintain. But before you put any sort of blame on yourself, you need to be realistic as to how your emotional needs were not met in that relationship. We feel betrayed when we realize the relationship isn't what we thought it was. If you're just coming out of a toxic relationship, in that relationship, at least before you realized how unhealthy it was, you were in a deeply unconscious place. And so when you wake up to this fact, you are going to feel super upset and super angry, and that is totally okay. Don't overlook how important it is to experience those low vibrational emotions, because they are here to teach you. They are here to show you, wow, my needs really weren't met in that relationship. Wow, my boundaries were really violated in that relationship. The reason it's so important to let yourself be angry is A, so you don't just end up blaming yourself for everything that happened in this relationship, which ultimately would lead you to end up being in a very similar toxic relationship dynamic. And two, you don't want to look over your emotions. You don't want to minimize, belittle, or invalidate your own feelings. You want to let yourself experience every single emotion that comes up. So the next step as you're transitioning out of this anger phase, and it's okay because you will likely go back and forth. You'll have moments where you think you've overcome the anger and you come back into it. But the next step is asking yourself, why did I attract that relationship? Why was I a match to this person? I truly believe there is no such thing as a healthy person in a toxic relationship. And usually the more outwardly toxic person is blamed for all the bad things. They were the ones that were gaslighting me and stonewalling me. A lot of people will get stuck in this place of anger. A lot of people will get stuck in completely just blaming this other person for the relationship without ever asking ourselves how our role in that relationship kept that dynamic afloat. And obviously, if this is your parent, that means that they conditioned you to be that enabler role. But now that you're an adult or becoming an adult and realizing, holy shit, I'm actually encouraging their toxic behaviors by going along with what they need, even if that's what you had to do in your childhood to keep yourself safe. It is your responsibility to take accountability for your actions. It is your responsibility to deprogram those belief systems. I know it's unfair, I know it's painful, and I know it fucking sucks. But it is just as much your responsibility to look at why this relationship was a match to you in order for you to ensure that you don't repeat the cycle, that you don't attract the same kind of relationship back into your life in a different form. So ask yourself, how did I enable their behavior? How did tiptoeing around certain subjects and self-sacrificing your own needs teach you about what love is? Why did you believe a relationship in which sacrificing who you truly are was the best you can do and that's what you deserved? You have to be honest with yourself about how your belief systems created this dynamic. The final step in this process is humanizing the toxic person. If you just try to skip to the step of humanizing this other person and trying to forgive them, you are very easily going to repeat the cycle. This is why it is so important for you to allow yourself to be angry and to fully embrace those emotions. So I actually do not like calling people toxic. I don't have a problem with calling a relationship toxic because that's just facts. But when we call a person toxic in the way that the media talks about unhealthy, toxic people, most of the time, they are belittling their worth. They only care about themselves and they do all of these things simply to like torture you. It almost makes this person look like they're just a villain. Most of the time, this person has this front, has these patterns because that is what kept them emotionally safe in their childhood. When you're ready, ask yourself, what things have they been through in their life, whether it's been explicitly told to you or not, that made them feel like they had to manipulate you in order to receive love? What situations or what dynamics were present in their childhood that made them develop narcissistic patterns? Would their needs have been met by their family members if they hadn't developed those patterns? What it really comes down to is at the core of their belief system, they feel like they're inferior to others and they have to do all of these things in order to convince other people that they are lovable and that they are good enough. People who are outwardly toxic are in so much pain. They are deeply unconscious and they have no idea who they really are. Their entire persona, their entire identity is built around how they have been able to build and maintain relationships. And unfortunately, in their life experience, that has been only through incredibly unhealthy and manipulative means. This is not an excuse for their actions. Just because you understand how their trauma impacted them to develop certain patterns doesn't mean you get to just be like, oh, whatever, I'll overlook these unhealthy traits that completely hurt me and traumatize me and keep me in this toxic cycle because I empathize with their pain. No. You can have love and compassion for this other person without wanting them to be in your life. Once your cup is already full, any overflow you have, you can give to the people around you. But if you are completely emptying your cup in order to try to fill someone else's, it's like trying to fill a bucket of water when there's a giant gaping hole in the bottom. So you're completely emptying yourself and giving all of your energy to this other person only for them to completely drain it and they lose it, and you're basically giving up all of your energy to keep them afloat when it's their job to seal the bottom of their bucket. And to be quite honest with you, you filling someone else's cup all the time, that's a huge hole in your bucket. You are the only one that can make yourself healthy. No relationship is going to do the work for you. That doesn't mean you can't grow in a relationship, because relationships are often one of the best ways to learn about yourself, but you are the only one who can do this work. And you can't change another person. That other person has to change on their own. You have to put yourself first. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you really love me. I post new videos every single Wednesday, and I also post new videos every week on my Patreon page, so please check it out. Thank you so much. I love you guys. You're the best. You're amazing. Do your chain hang low? Do it wobble to the floor? Are you a fucking cat sitting on my fucking jacket? Yeah, you're a cat and you're really fucking cute. This is Shadow, bitch. Boop, boop.